Oh yeah, we are back, guys. For the second half of our show, we covered pretty much everything there is to cover in the first half. It was a very long half. Um, Covered the Top Cut Invitational, covered the World Championship draft, covered national championships, and now we're here to cover whatever questions you guys might have as far as preparing for Worlds is concerned. So that's pretty much what we're going to be doing. While I look for the questions, though, Kyle, fill in some dead air space like you always do.
Want me to ask one of the first questions?
Sure, please do.
All right. Let's see. Are we gonna ask questions about Plasma Blast?
No.
Very few. Well, maybe one or two.
No.
All right.
No.
I think we should probably wait till after Worlds.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
All right. First question from Shaquille Syed. Is Flygon Chandelure Tropical Beach viable to play at Worlds? And will the Top Cut be able to record games at the World Championships?
I would
take that one?
Whoever's willing to answer that one.
It was Flygon what?
Chandelure Tropical Beach.
Flygon Chandelure. Is there a Dusknoir in there?
Yes.
I think the Dusknoir might make the deck work. The spread can be very deadly over the course of a few turns. But 3 stage 2s, I'm not feeling it.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I am currently 6-0 with this deck online. 1 victory over Michael Framelot.
Yes.
So, deck has a lot of potential.
That's not embarrassing.
It is probably the most expensive deck because it contains 4 Tropical Beach. But otherwise, let's just hope you don't run into Garbodor, I'll say that. The deck does not play any energy.
Well, the deck is very good under the correct circumstances. So if you run into the right matchups, you can win the World Championships with this deck.
It's true. I've taken down every top archetype with this deck.
Playing games against yourself in your kitchen doesn't count, Kyle.
No, Pokemon TCG Online.
Yeah.
I beat Gothitelle. That was Pram.
Yep.
I beat Plasma. I beat Darkrai. I mean,
Time to move up to the expert setting.
It was. Hey man, Rock Guard, Flygon, Dusknoir. It's a brutal combination.
Now, do you guys want to answer the second part of the question?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know if we'll be able to record games from Nationals. I'm actually going to try. I'm assuming that Pokemon will be streaming in some capacity, at least for the finals. So I'm going to assume we can't do any sort of streaming at all. That's out of the question. But maybe we'll be able to record games and then commentate them later. I'm going to ask for sure.
Yeah, I read an actual article that Drew linked me to. And the article said that they were going to be focusing on doing more, more streaming and that kind of stuff. So that's something that we can expect out of Pokemon for this foreseeable future. I do know that they're trying to push it themselves, and I couldn't be happier about that, honestly. I realize that, obviously, we would love to do it ourselves. That's, kind of what we've been doing for the last couple of years. But if Pokemon wants to do it, then by all means, I mean, it's their right, and they deserve it just as much as anybody else, or more, obviously. They've grown this game so much for, so many years. So couldn't be happier that Pokemon's going to be taking over that, and I do expect for them to be doing this. And
they certainly like to wait until the last minute to announce it, though.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
Oh, I know.
Now, Kyle, can you ask the next question? Because I'm really having a lot of trouble finding the right questions here.
All right. Well, we got the next
Matter of fact,
one.
if you want to do this the whole night, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, well, it's your job. I got to give you something to do.
Go for it.
From Alexander Hewanick, why is Audino such a strong play for the upcoming World Championship, and what could possibly counter this deck?
What?
Well, it
There's
has
nothing that
it
can
has the
Claudio.
most hit bumps in the available to it. You know.
So Quad Audino, it's definitely a contender. I mean, it just runs 4 Audino, 4 first ticket, 4 plus power, 4 laser. It's kind of like your Quad Tornadus deck, Ben, but I would argue even better. This hit bump is clearly
Whoa!
better.
Let's not go crazy here. All right. We have a gem that was the Quad Tornadus EX deck. That was a legendary deck that just never... Just on... Next question.
All right, next question from Joel Montemayor. Will Espeon be seeing playability at Worlds? And how dominant do you think Gothitelle Excelgor will be?
Which Espeon?
I don't
think stops all effects.
I don't think Espeon's very good versus Gothitelle.
What about the other Espeon? Hits for weakness. I can knock out some Gothitelle.
That is
Gothitelle.
also...
Gothitelle.
The card's also iffy versus Gothitelle. It's like, it can work sometimes.
The biggest flaw with Espeon is it's weak to Psychic.
Yeah.
So all they have to do is catch your Espeon and then deck and cover with Mew, and it gets knocked out, and then you just continue to be locked. So if you're going to devote 2 spots to countering Gothitelle, you should probably either go Keldeo or maybe Audino. I think Audino would actually be better than Espeon.
Yeah, I'll go Audino way before I go Espeon.
Yeah, the only deck that can use Espeon to beat Gothitelle is Zebstrika, because they can't catch your Espeon.
Yes.
All right. Oh. I'm ready, boys. I'm ready to take over the question.
Yes, I'm doing my deck work.
You guys ready?
Yeah.
This next question is actually for Drew Holton. Aaron Wing asks, what would Drew have done if I went up to him at Nationals, wooed as loud as I could, did a classic Ric Flair chest chop, and then put him in the figure 4?
All right. First of all, he would have never got me to the figure 4. We would just chest slap back and forth for a while, and then
woo contest in between.
Yeah, it would just a massive woo contest with chest
and then he slaps you back and says woo, and go at it for a while.
It'd be like a mercy game until someone stopped and gave up.
And obviously,
somehow one of you would be busted open with blood everywhere.
Yeah. Someone goes through a table.
Would we see one of you guys jump on or get onto the top rope and they get knocked over at some point? Classic Flair style.
Woo!
All right. Well, that answers your question.
It's a briefcase they're just fighting for.
All right. That's.
Oh yeah, we didn't answer the second part. What about Gothitelle Excelgor? How well do we think that's going to do at Worlds?
I think it's going to have a strong showing in the cut. You know, it's got to be popular, especially after it won Nationals. But you got to expect a lot of people are going to tech for it too. I don't expect the deck to win Worlds, but maybe it'll make me eat my crow or whatever saying is.
Have they announced top cut length?
It's 75 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. I think 75 minutes is plenty of time for Gothitelle Excelgor. I mean, obviously it's cutting it close considering the fact that it's one of the slower decks, but I think it can definitely do some damage in top cut. It's just got to get there. I don't know. I feel like it's a strong choice. Obviously, it's got to be the most powerful deck in the format. Now, whether it's the most consistent or you know fastest, that's a completely different question. But it's got to be the most powerful deck in the format.
Yeah, I think the only thing is I feel like the reason it won U.S. Nationals is honestly it's kind of just like Kling Klang last year. Last year, everyone was like, "Man, this is a big tournament. Nobody's gonna play Kling Klang, so I'm not gonna bother playing Lost Remover. What's the point?" And then nobody plays Lost Remover. Kling Klang wins Nationals. This year, everyone's like, "Man, it's a big tournament. I don't want to waste space in my deck trying to counter Gothitelle. I don't think people are gonna play it." So then people start cutting back on those Keldeos again, and what do you know? Gothitelle dominates the tournament. So I think now that Gothitelle's on the radar again, I think you're going to see a lot more people tech multiple Keldeos into their deck, which is probably the best way to beat Gothitelle. Mm-hmm. And I think you'll probably see Gothitelle do a little worse. It's actually just going to be all about matchups.
Okay, that's fair enough. I can agree with that assessment. I think if you see enough Keldeos be played, then Gothitelle's got to. I mean, it has to do a little bit worse than it did at Nationals, right? I mean, there's nowhere to go but down. But it should still be a strong contender. That's something that I can't imagine it not being.
The deck is stupidly strong. Like once that lock sets up, it's almost unbreakable.
Yeah, It really is. So that's that. Hopefully we do see a lot of Gothitelle. I think it's a good deck. I think um, I don't know if it makes for exciting matches, but uh,
No,
but it does
definitely
make
not.
for yeah, but it does make for strong decks. So
The
top
only
three.
exciting thing is, huh? Did he evolve the Gothitelle? Oh, he did. Okay, we're done.
Okay. Okay, he might miss his double. No, he's got it. All right, that's it.
I will tell you, I almost beat a Gothitelle deck at Nationals, and I didn't attack one time.
Did
You almost
try
deck
to end
him?
He just kept going through his deck, and eventually, he didn't draw double colorless for Mew. Um, or he didn't draw Mew. So he had to attack with Excelgor, and he didn't have another way to get another Gothitelle out. And then he also only had like one Excelgor in his deck left. So if I had just drawn Keldeo that turn, I could have rushed in, retreated, knocked out Gothitelle, and then just catchered whenever he benched the Shelmet.
But it wasn't the case.
It was this close. Round 4. It was this close.
I also beat 2 Gothitelles with 0 Keldeo in my deck, so...
And you had a plasma deck, which is considered to be a very good match for Gothitelle. So there's got to be a story behind that.
Matches.
Yeah, there's got to be a big story behind that. We'll have to hear it someday. Tafik
Whenever I get done writing my report,
yeah,
put it in my report.
when will that be?
Maybe after Worlds.
Tafik Hiriyat asks, how much will the metagame change from U.S. Nationals to Worlds? So we had a relatively established metagame at the National Championships. We saw Plasma, Blastoise be the 2 most played decks. We saw Gothitelle kind of climb up the ranks there and end up taking the number 1 spot. Will the metagame change because of this?
Oh yeah, it has to.
Yeah.
Maybe not the metagame, but maybe just the way people build decks. But I think we'll actually see a rise in Darkrai decks, because that probably is the best matchup against Gothitelle when you factor in the Keldeo. If you get 2 down, you can just rush in, get free retreat with the Dark Cloak from Darkrai. I think we'll actually see a rise in Darkrai. That'll be the change.
That's a very fair point. Darkrai is a deck that really wasn't played all that much. I mean, it had numbers, but when you compared it to the other big 3, it just didn't come close. So you expect Darkrai to kind of climb up the ranks. That's fair.
Anyone else?
No, I think that's pretty fair. I think Darkrai's gonna come up, though. Then there's people who might think that and then try the next level. So we'll see how that works out at Worlds. Worlds is a weird tournament. It's kind of like who can next level someone without going too far.
Yeah, I think there's definitely going to be more Darkrai decks, but however, I don't think they're going to do that well.
Darkrai actually did very well at a lot of the international tournaments, so I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of the European players come over with Darkrai. I think that's probably where you'll see it the most. I'm not sure how many U.S. players will shift over to it, because honestly, Darkrai has not been too... I don't know. It's probably not been the most popular deck in the U.S. It hasn't really won major tournaments. Maybe a regional here and there, maybe a state here and there, but I think overall people have shied away from Darkrai in the U.S.
I mean, and the big reason that people did that was because of Blastoise, correct?
Yeah, its Blastoise matchup is kind of poor.
Yeah. So now that we've seen that Blastoise really isn't all that much of a factor. I mean, honestly,
I think it's a huge factor.
Well, the thing is, it did very poorly at the U.S. National Championships. I mean, I can't tell you how many Blastoise decks I saw in the top 64, and then all of a sudden in top 32, I see 4, and then all of a sudden I see none. I'm just sitting there going, what happened?
Well, Blastoise is a very 50-50 deck, so you can see those kind of variants happen. With Blastoise, it doesn't really have a good matchup versus anything particular except for Darkrai.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have a bad matchup on anything particular because of the way Blastoise works.
Do you feel like its Gothitelle matchup is fair?
Yeah, I think it's at least 50-50, if not a little bit of favorable for Blastoise. Okay. Depending on who goes first, obviously.
Yeah, I actually thought that at first. I thought Blastoise would be the reason why Gothitelle wouldn't do very well, but the more I thought about it, I think Gothitelle's actually a little bit of a favorite, just because if they get turn 2 Gothitelle, you pretty much lost. There's no way you're ever getting Keldeo's powered up. Like, you're just going to get captured out. You can't win manually attaching to a Keldeo. It doesn't really work. But even if you get at turn 2 Blastoise, you're not guaranteed to get all those energy and to draw into the Keldeos and such. So I feel like Blastoise is probably a little bit of an underdog, but I mean, obviously it could still go either way.
Yeah, I think Blastoise builds need to evolve a little bit to compete with the current meta, but I think once they do that, it'll be pretty good.
Yep.
All right.
I think
That's,
every Gothitelle player is like scared to face Blastoise, because if they hit that turn 2 Blastoise, drop 4 water on a Keldeo, you're just done. You're out of the game.
Yeah, if they have,
And that's just scary to think about. Like, oof, if he gets that turn 2, I have no chance of winning.
Mhm.
But it's probably not as bad as it looks.
double Keldeo 4 energy is like almost auto loss.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad.
Good points. So we will have to wait and see exactly how well Darkrai does, how well Blastoise does. Seems like these two decks are kind of like the factors of like what's gonna, define how Worlds actually ends up going. So if people still play Blastoise in strong numbers, and if they evolve their lists, then maybe we'll see Blastoise resurge. And if not, then maybe we'll see that the Darkrai players made the correct choice for the World Championships because of its matchup against this Gothitelle deck. But the very next question is from Soren Newman, and it's for Pramela. It says, which decks do you think we will see most at Worlds, and in what order would you place them? Also, would you like me to beat you in the 3rd and 4th round of Worlds?
3rd and 4th round? You mean like
3rd or 4th, yeah.
Oh, well, let's see. Preferably the 4th round if it had to happen, because that way I would be playing against 3 1s in my 5th round instead of 2 1s in my 4th round. So, a better resistance if it had to happen like that. In terms of what decks I think are going to be the most popular, I think Gothitelle, maybe number third most popular. I think that's pretty fair. I think Plasma is going to still be number 1. And 2 and 4 is going to be between Blastoise and Darkrai. One or the other.
So you feel like Gothitelle is going to be firmly between them both?
Yeah.
You just don't know which way.
I don't know which way people are going to go into either Blastoise or or Darkrai, but I feel like Gothitelle, because people don't want to play Gothitelle Mirror, that's a very matchup for a lot of people, and people don't, then you have to consider, well, if these Blastoise decks start playing like anti-Goth cards, and then like if more Darkrai decks pop up, there's so many Plasma decks at Nationals that Gothitelle just could sweep through. But here, I think it's a smaller tournament, better players. People are going to be testing for this matchup particularly. I think people might shy away from Gothitelle, but it's all going to be played in a good amount number to take like 3rd most played deck.
Okay, that's fair. Thanks for the answer. Blue Lynn Ivy asks, top card to tech into basic decks. How about the top card for stage 2s? Anything for Goth? So I don't know if he means, okay, he says into basic decks. So what do you guys think is going to be the top card that comes into the basic decks?
Keldeo EX.
Yeah, okay, that's actually a good one. Can't argue there. What about the top card for stage 2s?
Keldeo EX.
I think the top card for basics would be Tool Scrapper.
Okay.
For the life do and stuff like that.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
And Floatstone is everywhere, literally everywhere.
Yeah.
Now, what about stage 2s?
Top card teched into stage 2 decks.
Yep. You have to consider what the stage 2 decks are.
Is that just like Blastoise and that's it?
Stage 1 Pokemon.
Yeah, War Turtle.
I mean,
War
you have
Turtle's
Blastoise,
good.
you have Gothitelle. Gothitelle's a stage 2 deck. You have Kling, it's also a stage 2 deck. You have 3 stage 2 decks right there.
I don't think
Turtle's not
Gothitelle needs to do anything. War Turtle.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe more stage 1s. Who knows?
Okay, that's fair. And Do you guys know of any card that you would want to tech in for Goth? Don't name Keldeo EX, please. Anything else?
Audino.
I knew somebody was going to say Audino, and I didn't know it was going to be Drew.
The problem with like all the counters to Gothitelle is that most of them just don't work.
Yeah, you can get around them.
Yeah, like the Espeon seemed good in theory, but then like Espeon was a good tech last year because they couldn't play catcher when they had Vileplume. But with Gothitelle, it's just a one-sided item lock, and they can still play catcher. So none of those little techs are safe.
Jirachi Call of Legends.
Yeah, that's not legal.
That would be pretty good, though.
Yeah, I would play it.
There's little gimmicks you can run, like a corner Sneasel that can lock a Gothitelle in place because they can't retreat. But I mean, that's a big risk because if they play a Keldeo themselves, they could just rush in and retreat, and that's just a wasted spot. So the problem is there's like no foolproof counters to Gothitelle. It's always got a way out. The only one is Audino, and the problem with that kind of stuff is there's no supporter-based search, so you just have to blindly draw into these things because your items are shut off. That's why Gothitell's so strong. It's almost impossible to counter.
Fair enough. Well, I guess we'll move on to the next question then. The next question is from Baki, maybe? Winsma. And it's, what do you think about Garchomp Altaria?
Oh, it made top 64.
It's very good
It
versus
did.
Blastoise.
Ross Cawthon, somebody who's known as playing rogue decks, chose a deck that, I mean, by all means, is a rogue deck now. And that was Garchomp Altaria. So, he piloted it all the way to top 64, but then again, he is Ross Cawthon, you know? So if anybody's going to pilot it to that kind of a strong finish, it would be him. And he was really close to making top 32, by the way. Really, really close. It was sudden death. It was, it could have gone his way, easily.
I mean, the deck does have a very good Blastoise matchup just because it relies so much on the Black Kyurem EX. And Garchomp just goes, oh, 1 energy, I'll take 2 prizes. So that's really bad for Blastoise. But beyond that, you got to think, like, what good matchups does it have? It can't be good against Gothitelle because you can't really run Keldeo. Yeah, I don't think you're going to run Audino. Even if you did, I don't think you would beat Gothitelle. You're going to get locked eventually. So I don't think it really beats Darkrai. It might be close against Plasma just because you're always discarding those special energy, but
Yeah.
the low HP basics are really what kills it. The Swablu has 40 HP and weak to lightning. The Gibble is 60 HP. It's a deck that takes a few turns to get into motion. Like you have to go through Gabite to use the Dragon Call and set everything else up. So it's like turn 3 at best is really where you're starting to put on pressure, and by then you could be down 2 prizes because your basics are so weak. And I feel like that's the biggest problem with the deck.
Yeah, I mean, that's well said. That's exactly what I think everybody knew that the biggest issue was with the deck, and it really doesn't have a way around it. It doesn't have. You can't just be like, oh no, it's not a worry. It's not a problem. I'll be fine throughout the tournament. I mean, no, you're going to be running into these issues all the time. You're going to be running into like just hoping, that you win the coin flip and you get to go first. And if you don't, then I mean, you can definitely just get turn 1 very easily. Or even if you don't get turn 1, if you fall behind on like Swablues or something like that, like all your opponent has to do is knock out your first Swablu. Then the next turn they capture up the next one, and then that's 2 prizes right away. And then that's 2 Swablues. So I mean, going second is just very difficult for the deck to handle. And these things, they matter. They really do matter, and that's kind of what holds the deck back. So it had a great run at Nationals. I don't know if people are going to be piloting it at Worlds, but if they do, then I mean that's kind of what they're going to have to get through.
To be fair, Ross's run wasn't even that great. I mean, it's top 64, yeah, but he had 2 buys, and he went 4-3 in Swiss. So he went 4-3. He went overall 5-4 with the deck. So I don't know if that's a great run. I mean, top 64 is great, obviously, but the overall record is pretty poor.
Yeah, that is a good point as well. The buys help a lot. It'll let you get in at 6-3 if you're anybody but Chris Wynn, and
Poor guy.
Yeah.
I think Ross even admitted, like, I didn't take this event too seriously. I kind of played a fun deck that would allow me to maybe get lucky somewhere. So I don't think he even considers that a top-tier deck.
Well, let's hope for... wait, who took Ross Who took Ross? Was it Black Ballistas
Oh,
Yeah.
for the
Yeah,
draft?
it's Ben.
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah. All right. Good to see you're awake. Let's hope for the Black Ballista's sake that Ross takes this tournament a little bit more seriously.
I just want him to take
sure,
it slow.
I'm sure he'll take it seriously.
I just want him to take it slow, and he'll do well.
All right. Soren Newman asked another question. He asked, "What are your thoughts on rogue decks at Worlds, guys?"
If you can make one and it works, good for you.
You know, it's a real boomer bust kind of strategy. You know, you see a lot of worlds where a rogue deck comes out of nowhere, like Team Magma, is that what it was?
Yeah.
And just wins the whole thing that nobody saw it coming. And then, you know, the other tournaments, I'm sure there were rogue decks, but we don't remember them because they did terribly. So it's a real
Rogue decks-
boomer bust strategy.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, like, how successful have rogue decks been over the year? Worlds. I mean, for the first couple of years, they Magma first place at 2004, and then Nidoqueen the next year was another surprise deck.
Mm-hmm.
Even the second place deck that Ross played was a surprise deck. Dark Tyranitar Electrode. And then from there, I'm trying to think of real rogue decks. The only other one is the Truth, I think, from Ross. That was a couple years ago.
How about Gallade 4? Honchkrow?
Yeah, but that didn't do that well.
Yeah, it made top
It grinded people grinded this guy into worlds, right?
How about Gyarados?
I
Huh?
didn't play Honchkrow though.
Gyarados was a big one, yeah. And
I don't
Beedrill,
remember
I don't know if Beedrill was rogue, but it was up there.
Beedrill was a
surprise
rogue.
deck.
It was
Was
just like
rogue.
no one took it seriously.
Yeah.
That's kind of rogue, no? I mean, that's kind of what like.
I mean, it was
I
there.
mean,
It wasn't like a surprise deck.
Yeah,
Flygon
everyone knew
too.
about it.
Gyarados was a surprise.
Yeah,
Everyone's like,
Gyarados took over the.
That guy was
I mean,
so-
honestly, that Gyarados deck just shaped the entire format for the.
Him and I in
the next
in
season.
Swiss were XO, and then I played him, and he flipped 4 for 4 on the Super Scoop Up, and then I was just like, man, if you only win 3 out of 4, I win.
I'm trying to think. There was a Rogue Scissor EX deck at one World Championship. It was just straight Scissor EX.
Yeah.
That was in 2007. That was a Rogue deck player. I think top 4.
2010?
There was that.
2010, the Steelix deck?
Oh yeah, that was a real
2000
scary deck.
2007 Scissor EX.
No, 2010, there's
2010
Steelix.
there was Steelix EX.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think that got too far. But
It was so lucky. Like we were so
Top
the
32.
entire tournament was so lucky
Or-
because like
I don't remember.
it was
Yeah.
literally like everyone was just like, I don't think I can beat the Steelix deck, guys. Like no one could figure out a way to do it. It was like because no one was playing Blaziken except
Yeah.
for this one guy in top 32. And sure
that was,
enough, that one guy played Eric Nance using Steelix, and Eric lost in the top 32 to a Blaziken.
Yeah, that was brutal. He had like probably a pretty clear path to win that tournament. There were many decks that were going to stop that.
Except
then-
for that one guy.
The one guy who still clung on to his Blaziken in his deck for no reason. And hey, there's a Steelix. He's weak to fire. Oh, go figure.
I knew this Blaziken was genius. I know it's so good.
And
It might have been Infernape even.
or something like that.
Yeah, it was some fire Pokemon though.
I think it was Blaziken.
Something that nobody played anymore.
I want to say.
So,
it
what
was
are your
Blaziken.
thoughts on rogue decks, though? I mean, I know we're just discussing like all these older decks, but what are your thoughts on them?
I think they have to be very well planned, thought out, and they have to be very well tested. Like, and if it's legitimately good, it's legitimately good. But you have to discover it on your own in a very short amount of time. So it's very difficult to come up with one that works.
Yeah, that is well said. A lot of people just choose to play rogue decks because they're like, oh man, I'm a rogue player. This is what I do. And when you force a rogue deck, that's when you're setting yourself up for disaster most of the time. But sometimes you'll get lucky, or sometimes you'll actually hit the nail on the head. But for the most part, if you're just doing it for the sake of doing it, then you're not doing it for the right reason. Really, the best rogue decks are chosen because they have, there's either a test team or there's one guy that's just sitting there really racking his brain about the format, and he just finds this strategy that a lot of people wouldn't have found because they just don't put that kind of effort into it. And once he does put the effort into it, he puts the testing effort into it, make sure that his theory worked, and there you go. That's a tried and true rogue deck strategy that that will really lead to success. But if you do it just for the sake of doing it, then I mean, you're just setting yourself up for disaster.
Yeah, most of the time innovation comes from like doing little twists on decks that are already played. So like you'll see like a standard, like for example Darkrai last year, you'll see Darkrai, right? But then you take a little twist on it and you add Mewtwo, and then it's a very strong Darkrai Mewtwo deck. You know, it can function as Darkrai, it can switch over to Mewtwo. And it's just like a little twist like that can sometimes be very effective.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think the rogue decks that have the most success normally like carry over into the next season, and they just remain like a top archetype from there. Like when Magma won, that carried over to the next year. People still played that. When Nidoqueen won, that was still like, oh yeah, duh, this deck is good. Play it the next season. Gyarados was the big one, where it really was huge the next season. When before that, nobody really knew about it, and especially Ross's deck, the Truth. I feel like that deck, I mean, it came out of nowhere, and then the next season for most of the year, until Mewtwo came out, that was a top archetype. So the best rogue decks are just good decks, like Graham said. They're just, hey, we figured it out.
Yeah, I do agree. So now we're heading into probably what is going to be our second to last question, unless we get a really good question from here on out. And that's from Bradley Michael. I've been a tier 2 player for 1.5 years. What qualities go into a great player, and what skills should you focus to get it to the top cut? So
I wouldn't know.
Tier 2 player means the kind of person that really like he gets there a lot. Like he gets to the top 8 a lot. He top cuts consistently, but he just can't seem to earn the play points or the championship points. I'm sorry, to really break through. So that's really what we're going to be focusing on here. 1.5 years is not a very long time, though. I mean, you really have to consider the fact that a lot of players have been playing for a decade or something like that, and that's what I think separates a lot of people. Like they have that experience over you, and the more games you get under your belt, the better you're going to be. Plain and simple. But if somebody wants to elaborate,
I think what separate like the good players from the great players are like the very little things. Like everyone knows how to play a Blastoise deck. Everyone knows how to play Plasma to some extent. Everyone knows how to play Darkrai. But it's when you're when you never mess up an energy attachment, when you never mess up a discard, that's when you start becoming a great player. And it's not the big things, it's the little things that count, because the game is all about, like, if both players are on even ground, it's going to be the little things that matter.
okay,
Yeah.
well said.
To add on to that, I would say the best thing you can do is like, and I know Brad, he's actually from around my area, played him a few times. The biggest thing you can do when you're playing and trying to get better is just question everything. Like, a lot of the times you just like play cards out. It seems like second nature. Like you just Ultra Ball, you'll discard this and this. But instead of just like going through the motions, actually like think about it. Like, you should be able to justify every decision you make. Say, all right, why did I play this here? Why did I discard these 2 cards? And go back and look and see, could I have done that differently? Could I put this energy in a different spot? Just little things like that. They do add up. Every Pokemon catcher you play, every Ultra Ball you play, every supporter you play, everything matters over the course of the game. And if you can go back and identify these little spots where you might be able to do a little better, that goes a long way. But it's really tough to do, honestly. It's really tough to be able to catch that sort of stuff. So another thing you can do is just when you're playing against people, ask them, did I do anything wrong? Would you have done this differently? Actually, like,
Crim strategy.
discuss. Huh?
The Crim strategy.
Yeah, I guess. But yeah, actually talk to people about it. Look and see, what do you think? Did I do the right thing here? Did I do anything wrong? And it takes a lot of time to actually develop a game sense where you know every little thing. And for me, one of the things I developed over the years is actually like being able to adapt to situations. Like sometimes you can actually kind of pick up hints from your opponent. It's very subtle. It doesn't happen a whole lot, but reading body language of people, I think you can do that sometimes. See like whether they're frustrated, and then you determine whether or not you would like play an N in a certain spot because you can see they're frustrated, they don't have something, and sometimes people give off information about their decks accidentally, like how many of a certain card they play. So really, it's just pay attention to detail. That's the biggest thing you can do.
Now, I want to turn this over to Drew, but before I do that, I'm going to elaborate on a couple of the things you said. Because coming from a poker background, like when you started talking about tells, it really like sparked something in me. And a lot of people that choose to focus on like the body tells and stuff like that really overlook the most important tells. And those are the ones where your opponent gives you not only details, but they give you like they basically turn their hand face up just by the plays that they make. For example, when somebody makes an energy attachment on a certain Pokemon, it really does tell you what their plans are for the future. I mean, clearly, I mean, by basically what they're saying is, I'm going to be attacking with this bad boy right here. I mean, that's step one. But then on top of that, it really does get a lot more intricate the more you start to think about it. And you just really have to focus and think about why they're making the plays they are. And you don't. I agree that the body tells do matter, but what really matters the most, in my opinion, is the tells that they make given their plays. So on top of that, another thing is that when you ask questions, like for example, when I said the crim strategy, I was doing this a lot at nationals because I hadn't played any games coming up into nationals, for about a year, and I had no idea what a lot of these decks did. I was completely clueless. So the first thing I did when I picked up the Gothitelle deck was I asked questions. I was like, well, what am I supposed to do here? I mean, what am I going at? Like, what does this clean deck do against me that I'm supposed to worry about? Once you ask these questions, you focus more on the game. You're not necessarily on autopilot. Anybody can just pull out a Gothitelle deck and go like, well, I guess I get to play Red Candy on a Gothitelle and do this. But when you really stop to think about the reasons that you're making the plays that you're doing, then that's when you start getting better because you start analyzing your plays and so forth. But Drew, I do want to kick this question to you before we move on.
I'm probably just going to piggyback on what has already been said. I think there's two big things, practice and reflection and evaluating yourself. So practice is before the tournament. That's a big thing. You're playing situations out. Try to play versus as many different decks as possible. Try to play versus people you think that are better than you. Because if you're just beating up on some 10-year-old and you're like 20, you're probably not improving your skills at all. Maybe the 10-year-old's really good, but chances are you're just beating them up over and over again. And then after the tournament, look back on your deck and how you played. So evaluate the cards in your deck, what worked, what didn't work, what was in the metagame for that particular tournament. Do you expect it to be the same, that kind of thing. And then as far as play, look back to the situations you were in, tough situations in games, and try to think if maybe you played it a different way would have worked out better or stuff like that. Just constantly evaluate yourself.
Yeah, I see a lot of people chalk up their losses to like their opponents getting lucky or them getting unlucky, but a lot of times that's not actually the case. Somewhere along the way they messed up, and sure, they may have not drawn the best, but they could have won with the hand they were get dealt, but they chose not to because they didn't see the play. So, even when you lose, there's always again, evaluate your play. Like ask yourself questions, ask people watching questions. Like, could I have done anything different? And a lot of times the answer is yes.
All right. Well said. Final question, guys,
Good
from
question.
Squeaky Marking. Yeah, very good question. Final question from Squeaky Marking is, what deck are you guys going to play at Worlds? So we'll start off with the guy who isn't going to play at Worlds. That's me. If I was going to play, I would choose Darkrai. And for the reasons stated before, I feel like the deck is very good. I feel like Junk Hunt is a very strong attack. It's an attack that I'm actually comfortable with. And I feel like it's a reasonable metagame choice. So that's if I had to put my faith in any deck, it would be on Darkrai. Drew, you're also a person that's not going to be playing at World, so what's your choice?
Yeah. So the last tournament I played in was the last grinder, and I actually played the old version of Excelgor. I would just run it back again, play Excelgor again, Gothitelle. It's a better version than that deck. I think it's very strong. Just won U.S. Nationals. I think all the counters aren't very good versus it. Darkrai is probably the best counter, and I don't care about Darkrai. Old news. Gothitelle Excelgor, baby.
All right, fair enough. Potter, you're going to be LCQing. What do you think you'd be playing?
I don't know, and if I did, I wouldn't tell you.
All right. Now I knew you would have this mentality. You really have to understand that nobody's going to actually tech for one player or even three players.
What if I'm playing a rogue deck and I don't want everybody to know my rogue deck?
Then you can just say I would play a rogue deck. I will play a
I
rogue.
might be playing a rogue deck.
Thanks for being so helpful for the viewers, Potter. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, now I guess we'll just skip you. Kyle.
I wasn't skipping me. That was my answer.
Honestly, I will not know until maybe the night before. I never do. But I mean, it's going to take something to get me away from Plasma, because I feel like that's the deck that fits me the best.
Okay. Fair enough. Pram?
Yeah, like Kyle, I don't actually know what I'm going to play for sure. But I feel like Plasma is the deck that you can just make plays happen. You can have the worst hand in the world, but you can still pull games through because Plasma just lets you outplay people in a lot of matchups. And Plasma Mirror is a matchup I actually enjoy a lot. I think it's the most skill-based mirror in the game right now. So I would pick Plasma simply because I'm just familiar with it, and I just feel like I can outplay people with it.
Okay. Good reasons. So that's been our show, guys. Oh my goodness, it's been 3 hours. Going on 3 hours anyways.
Yeah, it's been a long one.
Yeah. I had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun doing the World Championship draft. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Picked a lot of players that you might not have expected, like Shintaro I believe that's his name.
Hideki.
And Hideki, yes.
Hideki, yeah.
First one.
Got Chan Park.
Chan Park. We have Diego Casiraga. We have Sugiyoshi Yamato and Jason Klaczynski both being picked out of the LCQ. And we have even Kyle Sukovic being picked.
Yeah, that was a dangerous pick.
I will say that was a bad pick.
Ouch. All right, so looking forward to seeing the results of that, and obviously we'll try to update you guys with as much as we can about that. National championships were a blast. Hope to run that back again. TI, can we just focus a little bit more on the TI before we say goodbye? Because this is gonna be our last chance to really advertise it. Which one of you guys really wants to give the good final delivery on this? Who's ready to be excited?
Kyle's ready.
Are you ready to be exciting, Kyle? Can you be exciting right now?
I feel like I'm lagging a little bit. That's my only apprehension here.
All right, well, I can be exciting about it.
All right, Pram can be exciting. Let's do it.
All right.
All right, well, I had a lot of fun watching last year's and casting last year's Top Cut Invitational. I'm excited for the 8 players who have been selected to play in this year's Invitational. We have some great players. We're going to have some great games, and it's going to be a great tournament. We had a lot of viewers watching last year. Hopefully this year we'll have more. Hopefully we can stream it, but, we'll see. And the overall tournament should just be really, really great. I'm going to have a great time watching, casting, all that stuff. So it's going to be a great event, and everyone should watch it.
Yep. And congratulations to the 8 players that are actually going to be at the Top Cut Invitational. Sugiyoshi Yamato, Igor Costa, Harrison Levin, Edmund Kurz, Ryan Sablehouse, Jay Hornan, Jay Witz, and your viewer's choice, Sammy Sekun. That is all 8 players that are going to be there. Oh, yeah, I got them all. I actually cheated. So those are going to be the 8 players that we're going to be featuring at this tournament. I can't wait to actually, see how this plays out. Thank you all for all of your support with the Top Cut Invitational. It's been a blast talking about it, and hopefully it'll be even funner to be able to actually see this. So congratulations to everybody that just did the show and survived the show with us. It's been 3 hours. That's a long time. We are ready to take some naps. Have a good night, guys.
Peace out.
See ya.
Bye.